We'll go ahead and start the study session, and perhaps Councilor McGuire will join us. Director Farman.
Thank you, Mayor. We wanted to give council a report tonight on our information technology. We are in year 4 of a 5-year contract, and we have a new IT consultant. We've been trying to work together to be proactive, making infrastructure enhancements, and also working on cybersecurity prevention measures. So this is just an update to council, a periodic report on what we've been working on, and also some possible future initiatives that might end up being budget requests that council might see in the future. So we do have Scott Porter here tonight. He's from the Bross Group, and he's going to give this update to council.
Oh, all right.
Technology.
Technology.
Yeah.
Well, this is really a business process issue. Yeah. So it's like I say most time, it's a user issue. So hi, thank you very much. I'm Scott Porter, General Manager of Bross Group. We started being your service partner in 2020 and have not had the opportunity to present to each of you or meet you. So thank you for having me. I'll keep. I'm not going to read the slide, so you have them in front of you, I'm sure. So I'll bring up some highlights. Oh, sorry. We're about 3 3/4 of the way through our 5-year contract. We've completed a number of things. In general, I would say that we inherited an environment that was functional, and stable, but pretty rigid. And one of the things we've worked on in the past 3 3/4 years is to add some resiliency and some flexibility to the environment so that it could adjust as needed. I would say that the other thing that we've done primarily is today the environment functions with a defense in depth approach to security, whereas before it was not very deep, it was pretty much at the boundary, but not very resilient. And today we've made some adjustments, and future initiatives would continue with those same types of adjustments to continue the depth and to continue the resiliency. A timeline, if you will. I think visuals help, so if you have any questions on this, feel free to ask. The items in blue are what we have completed. The items with the red diamonds are items that I believe we should be looking at in the future. There is one adjustment since I delivered this presentation that I'll cover. We actually think that we do not need to replace that server in January of 2025 based on some of the other changes we've made. I think we could actually remove that piece of equipment from the environment completely. I think it has become unnecessary based upon the other technology that we've done. Highlights on this, we started this, our engagement with the security audit that gave us direction. It allowed us to understand. We use the Centers for Internet Security. They have 3 implementation groups. We did the top level. It told us where the city was generally strong and where it could have rooms for improvement, and we used that as a basis to guide our efforts and continues to guide our efforts. We had some targets of opportunity, had an opportunity to save some money with your phone system, even though we don't do phones. We had a relationship with an organization, and that ended up saving some money for the POTS lines as well as retiring the legacy phone system. We re-emphasized know-before phishing training and routine testing. And then I'm going to talk about it here in a little bit here, but the way disaster recovery was taken care of was, again, rigid. And so we implemented business continuity. So in the screen, the lower right-hand corner, the business continuity and disaster recovery, whereas before data was being captured just once a day, and there's only about a 90-day backup, and it was stored on premise, and it was stored in a different application out in the cloud. We've moved to something that provides business continuity. So today, if there is an issue, let's say ransomware somehow got through, and it has been sitting someplace for 90 days. We store data for 7 years actually infinite cloud retention. We take data backups once an hour, and so we're much more resilient. And if something happens, if a piece of space junk hits the building next door and wipes out the data closet over there, we can click some buttons and have the city back up and operational in less than 2 hours out in the cloud. And so it's a much more robust method of working. Additionally, vulnerability, when we did our first scan, one of the things I want to point out is on our first scan, we actually had over 1,000 vulnerabilities identified, but most of those were like really low-hanging fruit. We ran a script, we cleaned them up. So the real number that we're measuring against was about 316. Today, we've reduced that significantly, and of the items that remain that are current, about half of those are related to the cameras and the security system. I don't want that to cause alarm. I know it probably should, or that you might think that's the knee-jerk reaction. But the reason we're not overly concerned about those particular vulnerabilities is that someone would have to be inside the building and then get into a locked room onto an isolated machine. We are not ignoring those security items, that security system. We're just trying to figure out the most efficient method to remove those vulnerabilities if they even really need to be remediated. Because if a camera has a firmware vulnerability that even if it's exploited doesn't provide any benefit to a bad actor, I'm not sure there's any reason to spend time on it. So anyway, on that one. The security audit, generally the city was in a pretty good place. Documentation of processes is a continuous improvement area and will just be an area of focus over time. City used to run on Exchange on-premise. It was burdensome, it was expensive from a labor perspective, and didn't have a lot of integrated security. So the move to Microsoft 365 really helped the city get some integrated security. For those of you who might be familiar, one of the first things we did in 2020 was remove SolarWinds. There was a multi-year exploit that hit almost a significant number of companies around the world. Federal government mandated that SolarWinds be removed from all federal government entities, even if the product wasn't the one that was exploited. We followed that similar approach. It wasn't a major item in the city, but I think it merits noting we've upgraded some operating systems, we upgraded some servers, so the infrastructure today is newer and has better redundancy. Again, we retired the Exchange on-premise server, and now we're using Microsoft 365. The city is not necessarily fully taking advantage of all the functions of Microsoft 365 because that digital transformation is really just at its outset, but there is lots of opportunity for the city to take advantage of that in the future. We are enforcing basic fundamental security now, multi-factor authentication, and we have better ability to track who's accessing what, when, and where. A couple of projects, some impacted us more than others. You all have your electronic packets. We assisted with that. The body cameras, the police car cameras got swapped out. We did the Teams phone deployment, which again was a cost savings to the city. It also gave them the opportunity to, now the phones is now integrated into Microsoft 365, so we have a better foundation for the city to leverage some functionality that's provided by Microsoft 365. Support-wise, what we see is that the majority of support is for break-fix type items. However, about 25% of the support we provide is for changes, enhancements, and small projects, little changes, which you would expect to have. We do see that just under 50% of the items are closed in 24 hours. I call that out simply because I think it's important that when a user asks for support, that they get support in a timely manner, otherwise they get frustrated. We have seen a trend up, and I'm still doing some analysis, which I'll provide to Doug later when I finish it, but we are seeing an increased demand in period over period. So the amount of demand from 2020 to 2024 has increased. Not surprising because 2020, being the pandemic year, impacted some things. However, I am doing some analysis to try and figure out exactly what's driving that trend, but over time you got staff increases, you have some technology changes, and these all then translate an extra hour here or two over the course of a year does add up. So, future initiatives. What you see here on the right is just my labeling to give you context, or a bucket, if you will. And so the Security Operations Center, and I'll talk about each one of these very briefly in the next couple of slides, but each one of these projects on the left are aligned with an overall initiative that's, I think, might make it easier to track, if you will, from a portfolio management perspective. So I'll talk about each of these here. I believe this is the number one priority for future investment for the city. Today, we have a pretty good defense in depth. Our firewall today, in the past 14 days, I was just looking at it before I came over, blocked 536 penetration attempts. That's pretty consistent over every 14-day period. So the city's constantly being hit. Your firewall blocked every one of them. If something were to get through, either by social engineering because someone clicks on something in an email, or picks up a jump drive and plugs it into their laptop, right, whatever it might be, then other tools are in place to respond, right? The ransomware agent will identify bad behavior of an agent or of a behavior on a machine, and will isolate that machine and then notify us. So defense in depth is already in place. The one thing we really don't have is an automated endpoint response. And so technology has advanced enough to where I don't need a signature to recognize that a virus is in place on a machine. Let's just say, Doug, I'm going to pick on you. Let's just say we have an agent that says, wait a second, Doug normally gets about 200 meg of data every day downloaded to his machine. Why is he all of a sudden at 100 meg, and then 200 meg, and 300 meg, and a terabyte? That heuristic behavior is out of the norm, right, for that endpoint. The endpoint detection and response agent would then isolate it, and then based upon the profile of that activity would then automatically escalate it to a human in a 24/7 US-based security operations center, and they would then actively threat hunt, and they would go figure out what's going on, and they either take care of the item or contact us to assist to take care of the item. So we've upgraded our tool set and have made that very affordable. Typically, this runs about $40 or $50 per endpoint for Security Operations Center, and we've been able to leverage our relationship with existing partners and their tool sets. So this one's, in my opinion, is the number one priority. Endpoint management, I've got this one as a second priority. What this really allows us to do is today when we deploy a piece of hardware, it takes a lot of manual effort. Tools exist that allow us to build a profile, and every time we deploy a new piece of hardware, I can give it to Laura or Doug, they log in, and the system will just automatically download, push all the applications, push the security profile, as well as then feed data to the Security Operations Center. So this one not only is a labor reduction effort, but it also then improves the ability of the city to expand its security profile. I think if we did that one in 2026, we'd be okay because of the system changes I'm making on my end with my own remote management agents. Multi-factor authentication. Right now, today, if someone wants to log in to the VPN, we don't have a lot of users that log on to the VPN, but today there's no multi-factor authentication on that particular access method. Because we don't have a lot of users accessing it, and they have to have multi-factor authentication turned on to get onto their device, the risk is mitigated, but it is a gap. Policy and process refinement. In general, I think that the policies that are written for, like, what will the city do if a malware event or a ransomware event or some type of technology event happens, right now we have our own internal processes. We respond to Bros Group internal processes. I believe it would be a benefit to the city to have their own processes documented, and then once they're documented, do a rehearsal. This one I added a picture because words don't suffice. On Microsoft 365, the way I would say this is anytime anywhere, secure access to your documents. Today, if someone is working remote and they want to get to a document on the file server, they have to log in to the VPN, right? Then they go through the network and then they get to the file server. If you ask me today, who accessed the file server, I can't tell you. I just don't have any visibility because the systems don't exist. If that same file server were out on Microsoft 365, not only could I control who accessed it, I could tell you exactly when someone accessed it, where they accessed it from, and I could set rules that would, disallow access, right? So what's in place today is not insecure by any means because it sits behind a very robust firewall. Permissions are set on each end user's machine. However, from a user perspective, their access could be made much easier if we got that stuff out to the cloud. It would also then allow us to reduce the demand on the server that's operating over in the data closet. It's not a high priority project. It is one that I think that could benefit the city tremendously. And then the penetration test, this is the last initiative, I believe, on the deck. The penetration test is on there. It's important, and the only reason this isn't higher in priority is simply because we're already doing vulnerability scanning internally. And so what a penetration test would do is someone externally comes in, tries to find a vulnerability, they then exploit the vulnerability, and they follow it all the way through down to the end. Since I've closed over 1,000 of those, and I know which ones are remaining, I believe that the risk for the vulnerabilities that we do know about are already primarily remediated, and the ones that are left can be managed. The other thing about penetration tests, which is why you see such a wide disparity in the budget, is there are different types of penetration tests. There are a kind where someone just runs a script. And an automated script just runs through, tries to find open ports, tries to use default passwords for the different systems, and that's it. On the high end, you have social engineering. Someone's going to pick up the phone, and they're going to go, hey, Doug, I'm the new employee from Bross Group. Eli can't make it in today. Can you give me your password for X, Y, and Z so I can check out this issue that just happened? So that level of social engineering penetration test is on the high end. That's probably the more likely scenario if someone's going to get into the city. And so that's why you see that wide range on the budget. So a decision at some point in time for a penetration test does make sense. I don't think it's the highest priority in the close in term. So with that, I'll take any questions you might have.
Does anyone have questions? Yes.
There we go. Yeah. Quick one. The budget numbers you show, not clear whether they're one-year budget numbers or recurring budget numbers. Could you shed a little light on that?
Technology. They are, so generally they're going to be 1 year. So penetration test would be 1 year or every time you execute it, a penetration test. Document management, that's a one-time, and it's rough order of magnitude for that one. Policy and process, one time. Multi-factor, one time. Endpoint, one time. Security operations, this is the only one that's recurring. This is the only recurring budget item here.
Thank you.
Yes. Councilor Moore.
And this is a great question because I don't even know. Our police department, in terms of their systems, are they tied in and did you evaluate that as well, or does that operate separately? So it's all tied in and that's been evaluated as part of this assessment.
Well, it depends on when you say police system. So like the police department connects to Arapahoe County and we maintain
Right.
the PC and so we troubleshoot those types of things. I don't evaluate
Right.
the security of a particular police application, but the systems they're using to access those applications
Right.
are under the umbrella of the service we provide.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Other questions? All right. Well, thank you very much for the presentation
My
and for
pleasure.
your service over the last 3+ years.
Plus years,
Really
yes.
appreciate it. I can speak personally to the fact that even just email has come a long way.
Well, we look forward to making the whole Microsoft 365 experience better for the staff on a day-to-day basis. We think there's a lot of opportunities for improvement there.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
All right.
All right.
Thanks so much.
So I can just leave, is that right?
Yeah.
Turn off the microphone?
As fascinating as it is. I guess we have to wait till 6:30, so talk amongst yourselves. We will, well, I mean, we don't even have to recess from a study session, right? So, yeah.
All right. In town, or are you traveling?
Would Bill? It is at 6:30, and I will call the city council meeting to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Eber? Here. Counselor Holen?
Here.
Counselor Wheel?
Happy to be here.
Counselor Sheldon is absent. Counselor Blum is absent. Counselor McGuire?
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mayor Pro Tem Wheel.
Thank you. I move to go into executive session under Section 24-6-4024B, Colorado Revised Statutes, to receive legal advice concerning a citizen-initiated petition and a council-referred ballot measure to amend Section 3.9 of the Cherry Hills Village Home Rule Charter and publication of related election notices.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Eber?
Aye.
Counselor Holen?
Aye.
Counselor Wheel?
Aye.
Counselor McGuire?
Aye. Okay, we will move into executive session. We're all back. We will now, we're back from executive session. We'll move on to item 5, audience participation. While the clerk's grabbing the sign-up sheet, just as a reminder, I'll call people in the order that you're signed up to speak. There's a time limit of 5 minutes per speaker, and we ask that we remind you that it's not a dialogue, it's just an opportunity for you to comment. And attendees must not interfere with the conduct of the meeting, and we don't have any public hearings tonight. So, Josh Baer.
Hi, everyone. I'm Josh Baer at 19 Huntwick Lane. Thanks for letting me speak here tonight. A gentleman who lives in Cherry Hills. He's an executive at T-Mobile. He wanted to be here tonight. Unfortunately, he's traveling. He was going to come in last week, but we'll get him back in. I know we've all circled the drain on this cell phone tower, but I'd be remiss in not identifying a few of the things that he discussed with me, and I want to do so here tonight. So, first of all, there's a couple topics. Number one, this Citizens Committee. I don't know whether this will happen or not happen, but I think it's a great reminder because we sat down, we met with Mr. France, who's again executive at T-Mobile. He had ideas that no one had talked about. I've had extensive conversations with Mayor Brown, with Councilmember Sheldon, with a number of you, and he brought up some ideas that no one had talked about or had perspectives that no one had really shared. So number one, and this is an important one, T-Mobile just signed up with Starlink, and they have over 100 satellites. They're rolling out a satellite program that will be automatic with your cell phone. That's the thing that Mr. France said. He said, the interesting piece is, and we went through all the data, he said that we're talking about a 20 or 30-year-old solution to solve a problem today. We can solve our in-home problems overnight, immediately. He said if we do nothing, then in the next 6 months to 2 years, this won't be a problem. He said these companies are here, they're all fighting for internet service, not just cell phone service. So it's going to behoove them to cater to an area like Cherry Hills Village full of high net worth individuals to then become their internet provider. The cell phone is going to be a loss leader. So I think that we as a community should really tap into the experts in this space and listen to what those experts say when we give when we give a consultant narrow 3 criteria in order to come up with a solution. We're missing certain things that keep up with the sanctity of our community. Number 2, and this was an important one as well, I had no idea about this. A lot of folks in our communities do. These cell phone companies are deploying now its mid-band spectrum. It's called C spectrum frequency. And a lot of people have said that we need to have 100-foot towers to clear our canopy of trees. That's patently false. Mr. France clearly articulated, he said, the new C-band spectrum penetrates trees, penetrates buildings. It travels 6 miles from one frequency. So we are working under the guise, based on these consultants, that we need to have these 100-foot towers, we need to clear all these trees, and that isn't accurate. So we've got something that is going to be solved through, we've talked about this in the past, we have innovators in the world. They're going to solve through satellite and other means the problems that we as a community are facing. And again, there's a market-based solution to this. It's happening, it's ongoing. I would encourage all of you to consider a citizens group of really intelligent experts in this space, things that I'm not a part of, in order to tap into what actually is happening and what we as a community need to do. So, thank you guys, I appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Baer is the only person signed up. Is there anyone else? Seeing none, we will move on to reports from members of city boards and commissions. Don't see anyone here. The consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. We'll now move on to item 10, Council Bill 6, Series 2024, an emergency ordinance of the City of Cherry Hills Village, Colorado, submitting to the registered electors of the city a measure amending the Home Rule Charter regarding the management and protection of Quincy Farm in accordance with applicable law and the conservation easement at the coordinated election to be held November 5th, 2024. Clerk Gillespie.
Good evening, Mayor Brown, members of City Council. Staff is presenting for Council's consideration and discussion, Council Bill 6, Series 2024, to place an item on the November ballot. The deadline to place an item on the ballot is next Friday, September 6th, and staff is happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions about the proposed ordinance? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve Council Bill 6, Series 2024, an emergency ordinance of the City of Cherry Hills Village, Colorado, submitting to the registered electors of the city a measure amending the Home Rule Charter regarding the management and protection of Quincy Farm in accordance with applicable law and the conservation easement at the coordinated election to be held November 5, 2024.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Eber?
Aye.
Counselor Holen?
Aye.
Counselor Wheel?
Aye.
Counselor McGuire?
Aye. And then I would entertain a motion to direct city staff in accordance with, I have the language ready,
Okay. Do we have a?
to direct city staff to act based upon our discussion in executive session.
Yep. Okay. I move to direct city staff to act consistent with our discussion in executive session
Regarding
regarding
the publication
Post, yes.
the publication and
of election
posting of
notices?
election, the ballot measure,
Of election notices.
Election notices
election notices.
is, I
Oh,
believe, what
yeah.
the
Second.
agenda reflects, yeah.
So the motion is to direct city staff to act consistent with the discussion in the executive session regarding the publication of election notices. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. It has been moved and seconded. That's probably just a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on then to reports. I don't think I have anything new to report. The city will be hosting the Colorado Municipal League district meeting here in the village in about 2 weeks' time. So thank you. And of course, you're all welcome to attend if you haven't seen that notice. And I'll defer then to Councilor McGuire.
I do not have a report tonight.
Mayor Pro Tem Wheel.
Thank you, Mayor. No report.
No report.
Mayor, also no report.
Well, it's a fast meeting. City staff.
Yeah, I will let the directors kick this off. Chief, do you have any reports?
Thank you. Just one. I'm sure everyone kind of recognized last week was back to school for all three schools. The elementary school was the week prior to that, but St. Mary's and Kent went live last week and likely felt some of the traffic impact of the first day or two. I like to just recognize through some education and a lot of conversations and some directed patrols that smoothed out pretty quickly, at least by the end of the week, and to remind our residents especially to drive carefully when in those speed zones. We will have an increase in visibility in those areas probably for the next few weeks and then taper off as that becomes more comfortable for all the returning parents. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have
question.
one question. I was out in my district today and understand that, and I'm over in, and that there were a couple of attempted break-ins last night. And I'm just curious, my understanding is they did not get into either of the houses. Were there alarms, or did you guys find out before this morning, or did they not call you till this morning?
There's a lot to that. Let me just say that the investigation is ongoing, so I'll be brief in a response to it. It's actually a great example of collaboration between the community and the police department. So we did have a few incidents that occurred early this morning where garages were entered through unlocked doors, and another attempt where a door was locked and they kind of moved along. Through the vigilance of some of the homeowners, law enforcement was contacted. We stopped a vehicle that we thought might be involved. There was a lot of investigation that occurred roadside, but the threshold of probable cause at that moment for the one case that we were aware of was not met. So they were identified and released. And then as the morning progressed, more incidents were reported. And we were able to tie those individuals to those cases, both in your neighborhood and Councilmember Eber, one in your neighborhood from earlier in the weekend. And through some exhaustive efforts, we've already made an arrest in that case this afternoon. That person's being held at the Arapahoe County Jail, and we are seeking the arrest of one other person. So a successful end to an unfortunate situation, but I would be remiss if I didn't highlight how important it is to have the vigilance in our community. That was the key to this particular case that allowed us to stop those individuals and get them identified so that an arrest could be later effected. So thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Director Workman.
No report.
Director Goldie.
A couple of quick things. The weekend before last was movie night. We had our largest turnout to date. I don't know how many, 12, 13 years we've been doing that, so it was a great turnout. Also, on September 3rd, you will be seeing a contract for the construction of the big barn, the reconstruction of the big barn. We're excited to get that started and moving forward.
Awesome, thank you. Catherine's not over there. Okay. Clerk Gillespie.
Today was the last day to turn in nomination petitions for the November ballot. We didn't get any new ones, so we have no contested races, one candidate per position. We are still having an election, though, because we have measure on the ballot now. And upcoming dates are, we have the September 3rd council meeting where more stuff can be added. September 6th is the last day to certify ballot content to the county.
Thank you. Director Farman.
Just a couple of notes on the 2025 proposed budget. We've been working diligently with the city manager, and the next steps will be sharing that proposed budget with the council liaisons for each department. So just be on the lookout for those emails in the next couple of weeks if you are a departmental liaison. So thank you.
Thank you. And I guess that reminds me, I know we're all aware that there's a special session of the legislature to address property taxes, and so we'll be watching that closely to factor in as we start our budgeting process. City Attorney. No report. And City Manager.
I guess I will mark that off my list of updates for City Council. The only other update I have for Council is regarding, you might have noticed in your weekly report the past couple of weeks, the Arapahoe County Open Space Shareback Ceremony is going to be September 18th, and the city will be celebrating its Quincy Farm Pond grant, that rehabilitation grant that we received. So if you are interested in attending, please let Emily know by September 3rd. Again, that's September, the actual event is September 18th, 11:30 to 1:30 at the Arapahoe County Fairgrounds. So if you are interested, please let Emily know.
Maybe one question, since you brought it up, and obviously you have to wait for the legislature to go through it and see what happens and see whether those ballot initiatives go away. But I've never read so many words in the Denver Post and come away not knowing exactly what it is that they're proposing, even though they talk about backroom deals. But based on what I've seen, it doesn't look like if it passed, it would be that bad for Cherry Hills. I mean, they basically talk about there'd be a cap at 5.25%.
But home rule municipalities are exempt from that.
Right.
So,
Well, I was going to get to that.
So the answer to that question is yes, you're
5.25,
right.
but it's
It would
like
not be
they're
that bad.
Exempt from that, et cetera. The assessment rate drops
a little bit.
a little bit. But if it went like what's been reported, poorly, but what's been reported, it doesn't look like it would have any significant impact on us financially.
Yes, please, but I'll say, based on where these conversations had been, 2 months ago, I think it's certainly much more rosier picture for not only municipalities like Cherry Hills Village, but also school districts, fire districts, et cetera. Right.
Yeah, the residential assessment rate, if that dropped by the 0.45, it would be 6.7%. So that is a substantial impact. Offset by what could be a backfill, which is very complicated to try to.
But there's still a backfill.
And a backfill and.
The actual rate.
Right, and
Yeah, the
property
increases,
values.
yes, that property tax value increases, so,
By 30%.
yeah.
Yep.
All right, well, if there's nothing else, then we would stand adjourned. Thank you all.